Hi guys, welcome to my Clip Studio Paint tutorial. Today we're going to learn how to make a lightning brush. The first thing we need to do is create our brush tip material. Let's start by opening a new project. We'll name it Lightning Brush Tip. And we want this to be a long skinny canvas. So I'm going to make it about 3 centimeters wide by 7 centimeters tall. Now, if you decide that your canvas isn't exactly the way you want it, just go over to Edit, and we're going to change canvas size. And you can change the width with the number values up here, or you can just drag it to however it looks good. I want to make mine a little bit thinner, so let's go to 2 by 7. If you want your brush tip to change color, the most important thing you need to do is make sure that your layer is set to monochrome or black and white. Go into your layer properties and you're going to change the expression color to either gray or monochrome. It doesn't matter which one. Next, we're going to turn on a grid so that we have a nice center line to reference. This is entirely optional. If you like to work more freeform, you don't have to do this. For brushes like this, I do like to use the symmetry ruler, draw a line across the middle. This way, I can map the top and the bottom of my brush tip to be the same. This is important because later on, when you're drawing with the brush tip, if those ends don't match up, you might have gaps or some weird artifacts showing up. So I try to get them as close to the same as I can. Now you can just take the tool of your choice, put a little reference point at the top, and then just leave it there. And that's going to match up later on. Now we can delete the symmetry ruler and draw our lightning. It can be super stylized and sharp and pointy. It can be more freeform and natural looking. I'm just going to go ahead and make some jagged edges here, not worry about it too much. Bob Ross this thing. The less you worry about it, the less it looks like a forced repeating pattern. It'll look more natural as you draw with it. And when you get to the other end, just don't mess with that other end. Again, we want these to match on both ends. If you want to add more variety to your brush in the end, you can do 2 or 3 of these brush tips and use all of them in your brush later. To do that, we can duplicate this brush, hide the first one, erase the middle, and just do it again. This will help give more variety to your final brush, and it won't look like a stiff pattern that gets repeated over and over again. Now we have 2 materials that we can use as brush tips for our lightning brush, but we actually want to make 2 more. The reason is when you draw it in black, it's only going to change according to the main color that you select. If you also want it to change according to the subcolor, then you also need to have it in white. The quick way to do this is, again, duplicate your layer. This time we're going to lock the pixels and just draw over the whole thing in white. And we'll do that for our other brush tip as well. Now we're ready to register our brush tips as materials. Make sure your background is turned off. Go to Edit, Register Material, and select Image. Name your material something that you're going to remember later. We're going to use all 4 of these brush tips, so I want to make sure that they all have a similar naming convention. Select Use for Brush Tip Shape and select Scale Up and Down. Select a folder where you want to save them and select OK. Now let's do this for the other 3 brush tips. Now that we have our brush tips registered as material, let's go ahead and make our brush. Let's make another project. It can be any size. There are 2 ways to create your new brush. You can create a copy of one that already exists and then modify the settings, or you can right-click and select Create Custom Subtool. The first thing we're going to do is add our brush tip. Select Material, select Add Brush Tip Shape. Now you can search for your brush tip. I'm going to add the black lightning brushes first. If we try to draw with this, it's not going to look very much like lightning yet. We still have to change a few settings. Let's start by going to Stroke. Select Ribbon, Now try drawing with it. It's one continuous line. If we want more variation in the brush tip, we can go back to the brush tip menu and select settings for flip horizontal or flip vertical. If you set them both to random, sometimes it works out well. Sometimes you get strange gaps, as you can see here. But just play around with those until it works the way you want it to. You can leave them off if it doesn't work. As you can see, I'm still getting gaps. It seems to work best if I set flip vertical to random. As you can see, we can draw in different sizes. Depending on how you like to draw, you may want to tweak some of the settings for things like brush size, where the size of the brush will change depending on your input. If you want it to be affected by tilt or speed, this is also where you will change that. I like to keep the anti-aliasing turned down a little bit. This way you can get some of the harsher line that come with lightning. And that's all you need to do to create your own lightning brush. It will change any color and it will draw in any size that you want. Now, if you want to get fancy, we can make this a dual lightning brush. What we're going to do is the same thing we already did, but under the dual brush settings. Turn dual brush on. We're going to set the blending mode to normal. Go down to your brush tip, and this is where you add your white lightning brushes. It's the same process as before. Now that everything's added, the only thing we need to do is link the brush size to the main brush. If you want both bolts of lightning to be the same size, this is the setting you need. If you want both brush tips to behave the same way, you need to have the same settings for brush size on the second brush tip as the first one. You also need to select Apply RGB Value for your second brush tip to change with the subcolor. So now you have a two-tone dual lightning brush, and you can change it to whatever colors you want. The nice thing about using the dual brush tip for this is that you can make it visible in your subtool settings. So if you want to turn it on and off on the fly, you can do that. And that's all you need to do to make your very own color-changing dual lightning brush. Thank you so much for watching. Like and follow for more Clip Studio Paint tutorials.